everyone, and welcome to today's GESS Talks webinar, The Power of Creativity in the Classroom. We're thrilled to have you join us for this important discussion that explores the broader landscape of arts education. Over the next hour, our distinguished panel is going to delve into the multifaceted world of creative arts, examining not only the performance aspects that we commonly associate with arts education, but also the diverse range of creative disciplines that offer rich career pathways for students. Today's session is going to address fundamental questions like, what do we truly mean by the arts? How can students successfully engage with all aspects of creativity in today's educational environment? And importantly, how can creative students effectively blend their learning across disciplines? So our panel will explore various creative fields such as performance arts, filmmaking, animation, fine art, and interior design. And as always, we welcome your engagement. So please do use the Q&A tab on the side of your screen for any questions during the session, and our panel will aim to address as many as they can. Now I'm pleased to hand over to today's moderator, who's going to guide us through this conversation. So over to you, Aubin.
Thank you so much, Millie. First of all, welcome to all our wonderful panelists. I'm going to introduce you all, but also have a creative icebreaker, a question that will allow you to display a creative side of yourself for all our listeners and viewers. So to start off with, I'd like to introduce Mr. Jan Horn. He is the CEO of SAE University College and a passionate advocate for innovation and skills development in creative media education, with a career dedicated to empowering future creative professionals through strong industry collaboration. My question for you, Jan, is what's one creative risk you took and that you're glad that you took it?
Yeah, very good question. I think all creatives take risks all the time, but if I think of what creativity actually means, it means to make something, to make something from nothing. And in that context, I think probably the biggest creative risk I've ever taken is creating my children. Because at the end of the day, you never know how that is going to turn out, but it is most certainly the most rewarding creative risk that I have ever taken. So yeah, I think that would sum it up.
Thank you so much. Next, we have SubIa Mojib, who is a distinguished visual artist and academic at the American University in Dubai, also known for championing critical thinking and interdisciplinary learning through her work in transformative inclusive education. My question for you, SubIa, is which city has inspired your creativity the most?
Again, a really interesting question, and it's very difficult to kind of pinpoint one city as such, but it would have to be London, is because that's where I grew up, that's where I went to university. So the city would be London, but if we talk about the inspiration on a bigger scale, it would be my cultural heritage, ethnicity. That also has played a very big role in inspiring me to do what I am.
Thank you for that answer. Finally, we have on our panel Lynsay Ansell, who is a seasoned drama educator whose global teaching journey from the UK to Thailand to Dubai reflects a passion for physical theatre, children's theatre, and nurturing student confidence through the performing arts. My question for you, Lynsay, is what's one role, on or off stage, that shaped your passion for drama?
It's really difficult to choose just one. Can I be greedy and have more than one, and I'll do it really quickly? So my first one probably is my role as an audience member. First ever show that I watched was Peter Pan, and I was like, this is amazing. And then I had a role where I actually acted in primary school, and I got to have that experience, Tiny Tim in The Christmas Carol. But probably most recently, my role as a mum has really crystallized my passion for drama in education specifically. I always knew how beneficial it was. I always enjoyed being part of it, but I think seeing what my kids get out of it, as well as their peers in class and everybody else, It's really made me focus on all of the positives involved.
Thank you so much, Lynsay. So if I had to sum it all up, we all have our passions, but we are all drawing from our own personal lives as our inspiration over here. Thank you for answering those creative questions. I think we can start with our panel discussion. And the first question I want to pose is to Jan. And then if any of the panelists want to jump in with their opinions, we can always invite that, or we can move on to the next question. So Jan, I want to ask you first, in your view, how do we define the arts in today's creative education landscape beyond just performance?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm going to answer the question from the context of, the role that I have and what we do. And that is really to create pathways towards careers where students can use their creative passions in an actual industry that pays them a rewarding salary by using the skills that they're really passionate about. So in our case, we would define the arts as something that is kind of like a combination between creativity, expressing yourself, technology, storytelling, and solving problems. So the combination of those things really describes the essence of students that study a creative discipline in our context, and then want to take that discipline forward towards an industry where they can apply it in a career. Another way to look at it is to look at STEM. We all know the principle of STEM, that it started about 25 years ago. And since STEM had been around, it actually evolved into STEAM, where the A in STEAM actually refers to the arts. And in that sense, it's not only performing arts, but it's also the creative media arts. But I believe that all creatives in some way are performers because they express their creativity in some discipline. So the performing is expressing yourself. So that's the way that we would describe it from our context.
Panelists, do you want to jump in?
I guess I'm a little bit earlier in the journey, being in a primary and a secondary school. So I guess we define it as any way that the students are able to express themselves creatively. The obvious subjects involved would be kind of art, drama, music, dance, those types of things. So I guess that's kind of our school-based definition.
All right, so Lynsay, then if I could ask you the next question, why do you think performance-based arts are essential for student confidence and voice? And how can we ensure that all students benefit, not just the students who want to act?
Why is it important? I think firstly, performance-based arts give students the opportunity to express themselves and communicate in a safe space. Obviously, we do those things in life, but in drama and music and whatever else, you're pushing to do that little bit more and that little bit more. And if you're doing it well, you're creating a space in which the students should feel safe to just challenge themselves that little bit further. How do we get students involved if they don't want to perform? Was that the second part? It's difficult, isn't it? But I can give you some ways that I try and do it. I think firstly, we try to encourage everybody to perform, even on a very small scale. So we have different levels in school, and we try and choose the level that's appropriate to the student that's in front of us. So it might just be a very small one-to-one starting, I will show you my presentation, miss, or I will do whatever it is that you want me to do, but I'm only comfortable with a couple of people in the room. And then we try and build to showing in front of their peers in a class setting. We then have smaller scale, slightly lower stakes performances that we call performing arts picnics and tuneful Tuesdays. So they're things that we put almost like kind of like busking or street art events. They're in a corridor or they're in an open space outside in the winter time. So they're slightly less formal and slightly less pressurized, but it's building the stakes again. And then we lead into our big performances, the musicals and the big productions and so on. Even within that structure though, and trying to get as many students involved as we possibly can, there are still those for whom even the tiniest of performance is a really big step and they would prefer to be kind of backstage. So I'm trying to develop programs where the students can get involved in that respect. So for example, in our musical, we had a student set design club and they did all of those things. And then they did the stage management backstage. We have students supporting the younger year groups and doing things like their lighting and their sound. And of course, they're part of the team and they're part of the success. So they still get that experience of building their confidence because they're putting something on stage that matters, that people enjoy, that they feel successful, and they're interacting with their peers to do that, whatever their role in it is.
I really like what you said about being more inclusive, even if they don't want to be on stage, and how you're getting them roles in the production, not necessarily on stage. Yeah, and anything to add to this, SubIa?
I completely agree. I mean, I think not everyone has that confidence or that knack to be right on stage and to deliver dialogues and everything. I mean, if I think back to when I was at school, I used to just hide behind people because I didn't want to be, when we had drama classes, to be in the front. But I think it's a really great way to build students' confidence. It's part of public speaking, and public speaking in today's world is so important. But also the importance of set design, lighting, the background, all those are equally important. So it's when you talk about drama, it's not just about someone being an actor, it's a collaboration. So, yeah, I totally agree with what Lynsay said.
How about you, Jan? You have something to say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that the role of giving students and young people the opportunity to express themselves is so crucial in developing. I mean, this is well documented in pedagogy and the development of young people. I think the one misconception that people sometimes have is that they think that performers are always extroverts. And this is not the case, that many creative people are actually very much introverts. But they have a burning desire to be able to express something that is within themselves, where they want to express themselves in a creative manner. And at school, this starts with the kind of things that Lynsay does from a performance point of view. But over time, they realize that the arts and expressing themselves and using creativity is a process that actually brings them closer to their inner self, so that introvert actually overcomes that introversion and be able to express themselves in a way that they feel comfortable. And this is the way for all creatives. It's all creatives need to dig deep to find that essence of what it is what they want to communicate. And I think this is why the work that Lynsay does, for example, with drama and performance art, is so important to be able for people to tap into that inner self and find that passion in how they communicate their inner self to the world. And I think this is what creatives really strive for.
That's really well put, Jan. A lot of us are introverts, and to get up on stage and get that opportunity, I think that's what we're all looking for. Thank you for that. SubIa, my question for you now is, how can students blend traditional fine arts like painting, textile, or Islamic art with contemporary or digital practices in school and beyond? And do you see a lot more of this happening?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, to combine the traditional fine arts with the technology we have now is so exciting. The combination of the rich heritage. I mean, it's just endless possibilities, especially with the digital tools that we have now. So, for example, you mentioned Islamic art. Islamic art has a history of repetitive patterns, geometric repetitive patterns. Now, these patterns, for example, if someone wanted to use these patterns in textiles, that can be translated using embroidery machines, using 3D printing. So there are so many digital apps which are used as a basis for augmented reality experiences and to really encourage students to experiment through different mediums. And I think this is really, really important. I mean, when I was at art college, it was very much painting, sculpture, printmaking, the different areas. But now what we're seeing is that everything has become multidisciplinary. So students are not just working together, but they're appreciating different skills, learning different skills. And I think it's really relevant in today's creative industry. So I think it's really, really important for schools, colleges, universities, curriculums to embrace the digital practices that we have.
Yeah, I think I agree with you about when we're looking at how our world is moving a lot towards the digital platform right now. Lynsay, do you feel that when you're working with students in theater, when you're working with them for drama, do you have any opportunities to use apps perhaps, or maybe some online platform that allows them to better their craft?
Yeah, I mean, there are apps and online platforms. There's lots of ways to use technology within theatre. I think it's really exciting being able to blend the traditional with the kind of more modern technology. Some of my favourite performances and performance companies are doing exactly that. There's a performance of Brief Encounter by a group called Knee High Theatre, and they actually used multimedia projection in the background of their performance. They had a train and water and waves and all kinds of things. And then the screen itself was actually paneled, so they could move in and out of it. So it was literally physically like they were interacting the traditional performance style with this multimedia environment. It's really exciting, and it's one of the things that I actually show with my year nines when we do physical theatre. So I try to do as much of that sort of integration as possible, because I think it's really important. And I think that the way that performing arts is going, you're going to see more and more and more and more of it.
How about you, Jan? What about at SAE? Do students have opportunities to use a digital platform in their studies?
Absolutely. I mean, these days, if you're studying creative media, everything is technology based these days. So SAE is very fortunate, especially here in Dubai, where I'm talking from SAE University here in Dubai. We are very fortunate that we have probably one of the most technologically advanced campuses that you would find anywhere in the world when it comes to the creative media programs that we focus on. So maybe I must just create a little bit of context, what I mean when I talk about creative media in our context. We're talking about digital supported media industries, like, for example, animation, game development, game design, graphic design, visual communication, audio engineering, music production, film production, computer engineering. Those are the kind of programs that we at SAE focus on. And the reason why that is important to us is because these are the industry specialist disciplines where students with creative skills can actually follow a career. You know, you can become a designer, you can become an animator, you can become a game developer, a game designer, a graphic designer, a film production specialist. all of these different areas. So 100%, all of our programs and the programs that are offered in higher education institutions, not only at SAE, would be technology based. And that would integrate, the creative suites that already exist there, film editing software, audio engineering software, electronic music production software. All of these platforms already exist out there in the market, and our students get trained on how to use these optimally, so that when they get into industry, they know exactly how to use these tools in order to express themselves to the best.
So since we're talking about skills and the industry, SubIa, I think this next question would be perfect for you. What are some of the core skills or topics students should focus on if they're aiming for top art and design programs at the higher education level?
Okay, so it's a very important question, and for anyone going into creative education, this is fundamentally very, very important. The students should ideally spend a year doing a foundation course. Now, in this foundation course, and this is very, very common in the UK. In fact, most art colleges will not accept students unless they have already done a foundation course. Now, within that foundation course, you learn, for example, color theory. You learn drawing, composition. You think, you're encouraged to think creatively, critically, to be original, and it's really there to create a portfolio that showcases the students' work. So not just the students' technical abilities, but also the students' concept development, visual storytelling. All of these elements are actually, we need them in everyday life, whether you're in art college, creative media, or anything else. So the core skills are absolutely fundamental, and to explore art history, to encourage curiosity, resilience, the ability to be able to critique your fellow students' work and to accept criticism as well. These are all essential for the next level in any type of design education. So these core skills should really be taught at an earlier stage during the foundation level.
I really love 2 points that you brought out here: the ability to receive criticism, critique, as well as resilience. And I think that's something that we need to teach our kids today. Lynsay, do you face any challenges in this area? How do you get your students in theater to critique each other? And how do they take feedback positively?
Feedback's really, really important in shaping their work and improving it. I mean, they can show me whatever they want to show me, but without that level of feedback, without being able to firstly accept it and then also respond to it and do something with it, they're never going to improve the skills that they have. So we work really hard on making sure that we have quite a safe, I've said this word before, haven't I, a safe environment for them to be able to express themselves in. But that includes self-evaluation, peer evaluation, teacher evaluation. So I will often have those types of discussions after we've viewed some work. I tend to go with the kind of 2 stars and a wish idea. So what are 2 points of success of what they've done, and then what can they work on? Very careful with terminology and how we use it. So it can't just be a criticism. It has to be a suggestion, something proactive that they can go away and do. And that starts from really young. So we start teaching curriculum drama from year 5. And then obviously the difficulty and the expectations with the levels of evaluation grow as they get older. But yeah, that's how we start with. And I think by the time we've been through that process repeatedly, they learn to kind of accept it and realize that it's beneficial to them actually to be able to act on what they hear.
So I want to ask you another question then.
Mhm.
How does performance-based learning help students in careers beyond the arts, in society, leadership, or maybe even in business?
How does it help them? I can't think of an area that it wouldn't help them. Like in every single career that I can think of, whether it's doctor, lawyer, sales assistant, painter and decorator, anything, you have to be able to communicate with your clients, your customers. You have to be able to share what you're thinking. You have to be able to collaborate. And the more exposure you have to that at school level and whatever else you're doing, the better you become at that. It's kind of like a muscle, creativity and confidence and communication. You have to use it or you lose definition, right? And the more you do it, the better you'll become. And that's only ever going to help people in their careers. I mean, look at us right now, what we're doing here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw you gesture there. Do you want to jump in and?
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't really want to add something because I think Lynsay said it so fantastically well. There is absolutely no area in the, in the professional sense, if once you get to the world of work, where having been exposed to this does not benefit you. It is just absolutely so essential. And the ability to be able to work with people, if you're a creative, you can be the most talented creative in the world who creates the most fantastic, whatever it is, music, art, anything that is creative. If you're not able to work with people, nobody will be interested in what you created, because this is what the industry wants, and this is how it works in industry. The other aspect that SubIa had mentioned so eloquently, and Lynsay underscored as well, is the fact that you need to be able to deal with criticism. When you create something, when you're somebody that's passionate about creating something, let's say, for example, like I said, in our sense, let's take something like you're an animator, all right? And you create an animation, you create a character, and you animate that character, and that character becomes part of a short film or a movie, and other people watch it. It's like them watching and experiencing your creation, your child, okay? Not everybody's going to like it, and not everybody's going to feel the same way about your creation as you do. And sometimes their criticism might be a little bit negative. And if you're not able to deal with that criticism, it will completely cause you to pull back into that introverted self, where you then stunt your creativity and you will never express yourself in the future again. And that's why what Lynsay has described and what SubIa has described is so important. There is literally no profession out there that does not benefit of having been on the stage with Lynsay.
Well said, well put. So can you share a few career paths in creative media that are growing quickly, but still relatively unknown to students or parents?
Well, I think there's probably every single career path in the creative media industries are relatively unknown to parents and students, especially in the region that we find ourselves here in the Middle East, because the uncomfortable reality is that if you think of all of the students that graduate from school every year, probably about 60 to 70% of them would aspire to go into 4 or 5 career paths: medicine, engineering, law, and finance. Maybe business as well if you throw that one in. So about 70% of all students that graduate from private schools within Dubai and in the Middle East will choose to follow a career path in one of those 5 career directions only. Why is that? The reason is because they don't know that there is opportunities that exist within what we call the creative economy. Okay, so if you talk about career paths and careers that are available for them, the creative economy within the UAE actually makes up about 5% of the GDP here. It's about the same size as the industry, construction industry, for example. It's bigger than the oil and energy industry in Dubai. People don't know this. So what kind of industries are we talking about? I'm talking about the ones that I've mentioned: design, UI, UX design, virtual reality, game development, game design, animation, film production, sound engineering, music and audio engineering. Now, just to give you an example of what I'm talking about 2 years ago, Prince Hamdan Al Maktoum announced the program for gaming, the Dubai program for gaming within Dubai. Okay, this was a new initiative that they had announced, and this is a new growing industry. Since over the last 2 years, more than 350 gaming companies have established their head offices in Dubai. There is more than 260 game development companies that are driving innovation in game development in Dubai. The gaming industry has grown by more than 20%. In the region, Saudi Arabia, over the last 2 years, have invested more than 38 billion US dollars in the development of the gaming industry. So when you ask me which are the industries that are growing, where people can find careers, that really includes everything that I've spoken about. The most pertinent example is probably the gaming industry. And then with things like animation and the film industry, performing arts, software development, UX, UI, web development, virtual production, all of these kind of industries are just booming within the Middle East. And they are looking for graduates that are able to apply these skills, but they can't find them because many of them never know that they can study in these directions. And they're all studying to become doctors and engineers and lawyers and, you know, those things, which is unfortunate because not everybody can be a doctor. Some people love to be performers. They want to be on the stage. So that's the thing that we are passionate about. And these are the career paths that we find that our students really find rewarding for them.
Wow, that was a very enlightening answer. So I want to ask Lynsay and SubIa, since we are on the same topic of students going for those traditional career paths, do you all find it difficult to convince parents or students to opt for performing arts or creative arts? Do you all find similar challenges?
At the university, 100%. There are so many students who have this natural apt towards design, art, but the parents want them to go into engineering or business, finance, etc. So it's very, very difficult for to convince parents, because for parents, I guess they're thinking, well, I'm investing X amount of money, and the whole point is that the students, once they graduate, they should seamlessly find work. What they don't realize actually is that here in Dubai, there is, as Jan said, it's a huge booming creative industry, and the job opportunities are many. So it's to change people's perception is quite tough, but I think in time it is changing.
Lynsay, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, we also struggle sometimes with the perception of arts and performing arts. I think it starts really in exam years. People see the benefits, they want their children to do it. But when it comes to selecting, I mean, we do GCSE here, but it might be IB or, you know, whatever program it is that your school follows. When it comes to then selecting options, you start to have these difficult discussions of, well, hang on a minute, I want to be a doctor, so mom thinks I should do 3 sciences, and then my dad would like me to do business, so I've just got no space left to do drama or music or whatever. And it's heartbreaking, really, because these children are so passionate about wanting to do it and they're not able to. And I have started the conversations many times in my schools, and to some extent had some success convincing parents that actually there are all of these many benefits, even if you don't end up being an actor or whatever it is. But yeah, it's definitely difficult, and uptake for our subjects across the board in the UK, internationally, uptake for performing arts subjects is generally far lower than other areas.
Thank you, Lynsay. I think now my next question is going to go back to SubIa. You work across disciplines. How do you see the arts intersecting meaningfully with other subjects like tech, business, or culture?
Well, I think people have this perception that art equals drawing or painting, and it's completely separate, whereas arts actually naturally intersect with many, many fields. A few weeks ago, I did a presentation on the intersection of arts in different disciplines, and I used the example of Leonardo da Vinci. He wasn't just an artist, he was an engineer, he was a scientist, he was so many things. So I think for innovation in technology, artists have to collaborate with engineers and scientists. I think in today's world, we're looking at really adaptive learning. So the teaching, I feel, should be adaptive, the learning should be adaptive, and it has to be cross-disciplinary, where the focus is not just on creativity, but also problem solving, on design thinking, on working together, creating immersive experiences, maybe in VR or AR. But also, I feel, so importantly, especially in the times that we're living in now, is culturally to foster empathy. I think arts should be used in a way in curriculums to foster empathy, dialogue, understanding each other's cultures, backgrounds, and to help bridge differences, bridge cultures together, to make it inclusive and to make it diverse. So it kind of bothers me when art is kind of sidelined. And when I say arts, I mean performance arts, in any type of art. Arts, I think, is the core of everything that we do. Everything that we do. I mean, the moment you pick up your phone and you want to order something on an app, that's design. That app has been designed in a way to make the whole experience easy and enjoyable for you. So in today's world, especially in today's world, I feel design is in everything that we do. So I just think it's so critical, it's so important.
Lovely. I've got a similar question for you, Lynsay, and then we'll go back to Jan because I think he's got some points to add to this conversation. So if you look at a similar question, how can drama be integrated with other subjects or disciplines to support creative learning across the curriculum?
Lots of ways, really. I mean, I think theatre generally, does life imitate art? Does art imitate life? We take in little parts of absolutely everything around us and present it on stage, and it's kind of a two-way relationship, so we use historical events and we use social situations, problems, we use all kinds of different things that we put into our performances. And then likewise, I think drama skills can be used in the curriculum elsewhere as well. As a method for teaching. If you look at people like Dorothy Heathcote in the 60s, 70s and 80s, she pioneered the whole mantle of the expert idea and teacher in role. Those things are still used in the classroom today. And when you have this kind of inquiry-based learning, it's perfect. So you put those students in a position where they can role play, societal issues in MSc or PSHE or whatever you want to call it in your school, where you can hot seat a historical figure to try and kind of explore more about them. There's lots and lots and lots of ways that drama and arts fit with more academic subject areas.
I like what SubIa said about empathy and dialogue. Lynsay, I really love how you're looking at arts creatively supporting other subjects. Jan, you want to add something to this?
Well, I think, something that SubIa mentioned around, creative people's ability to solve problems and to tell stories. Because ultimately, if you think about what it is that all creatives do, you can categorize this into one of those two things or a combination of those two things. Creative people solve problems and they tell stories, or they solve a problem by telling a story. And ultimately, this is the skill of creative people. And there are tools that they use to be able to come to that end product, either the story or the problem solution. And that process is like the scientific process. Scientists use the scientific method to take a concept to proving some kind of a theorem. In design, that process also exists, and it's called design thinking, like SubIa said. Now, this design thinking process is a process that you can integrate into all subjects, into all areas of life, because it applies to everything. It gives young people the confidence to know that if I am confronted with a challenging situation, a problem, or a story that I need to tell, there is a process that I can follow. It's a rigorous, challenging process, but it sets for you step by step of how you go from problem to solution. And this is what we need in the workplace. This is what people want to see out there in the world, is young people that have the ability and the confidence to say, I have learned a process of being able to take a problem and turn it into a solution, and then express it creatively. So I think this is really where the integration, like we say, where the rubber hits the road, is that tool of design thinking that takes people to be able to solve problems and tell stories.
Yes. And I think at some level, institutions also need to take charge of making sure that design thinking gets into the curriculum, that we have this perfect intersection between the arts and also academic-based subjects. So I think, SubIa, then I think this next question is perfect for you. What advice would you give to schools looking to make visual arts more central in the curriculum, especially in a system that is often dominated by STEM?
Yeah, this is something which I feel very, very passionate about, and the work that I do in a curriculum development, we see the problems there are in today's curriculums. They are slightly outdated, archaic, and me and Jan were in a conference a few months ago, and it was a STEM conference. And I love what Jan said. He said, everyone's still talking about STEM. STEM is gone. It's outdated. 20, 25 years on, we're still kind of talking about STEM, where it's STEAM, because art is a fundamental, a very paramount part of education. So, but to make these changes in curriculums, especially in the British curriculum, which is, I feel, is slightly antiquated, by the time that curriculum has adapted, the technology has moved on. So, do you know what I mean? It's where technology is moving so fast now, especially, and I feel that education is not moving fast enough. So I feel that, yes, STEAM is very important, but also there should be parts of the curriculum in schools, in universities, where students have to learn about the different softwares. I mean, there are lots of students who have never used Adobe or Canva or whatever. So these are really basic tools for anyone going into the creative industry that they need to be familiar with. So, I mean, I feel we're living in a very exciting time with technology and science and design, but also a time where critical thinking, communication is so important. And arts should be seen as essential, not optional. Arts have always been seen as, oh, it's optional, it's a side hobby. No, arts is essential.
Lynsay, do you want to say something to all the institutions out there that perhaps look at it as optional? What would you want to say to them?
Yeah, it absolutely shouldn't be optional. We've been discussing for 45 minutes now all of the benefits of participating in these types of things, and I think it's sad that we're still having these same sorts of arguments with leaders and that we're still not always seeing it. But yeah, please, if school leaders, people, parents, look at what we have, look at what's being offered, and see what your students can gain from it.
Yeah. Also, I would just like to add one more thing. This is about lifelong learning. That when you're thinking about curriculums and learning and education should be lifelong learning, because it's to do with personal growth. Personal growth does not finish once you graduate school or graduate from university. It is constant. It is never, it shouldn't be static. So I feel this is something which is really important too.
Yes, that's a very valid point. And I think as we look at the workplace, that's why we have CPDs, we've got constant learning, and we encourage our colleagues to keep upskilling themselves. Jan, if I ask you for the university perspective, what skills do you feel schools should already be teaching their students so that by the time they reach university level, you don't have to, touch upon them from scratch? What prerequisites do you feel schools should be looking at?
Well, I think when it comes to the technical skills, schools can certainly help to forge the way early by exposing students to, some of the technical platforms, the softwares. But I think a lot of schools do this anyway. We had the revolution a couple of years ago where all schools moved to digital platforms, and everybody had to have an iPad and all of this. And I don't think that it's necessarily supportive of creative thinking to give every child an iPad. I believe that creative thinking starts with a pen and a pencil, a piece of paper and a pencil. If you want to solve problems, you start with a piece of paper and a pencil, and you write something down, and you activate your brain. Rather than switching on an iPad. But the technology is a reality. So what I would say, what schools can do is to really teach students the process of going from problem to solution. Embed the process of design thinking into the curriculum, all right? Of course, then teach them the tools and the technical, technology-driven platforms that are part of the process to get to a solution and how to implement it. Very, very important. And I think SubIa and Lynsay both have mentioned this, is the ability to work in a multicultural, multidisciplinary group, and then to be able to communicate in that context. I think these are very important skills because that is what is required in the industry. If we look at the workplace and the skills that are required by the workplace, and the reason why we as universities really exist is to create a talent that would fit into the workplace. The World Economic Forum publishes a study every couple of years that predicts the kind of skills that would be required in the workplace of the future. Okay. The latest study was done this year, and it predicts the workplace of the future to 2030. And it would not be very surprising to people on this panel that in the top 3, top 5 required skills of the workplace of the future are things like creative problem solving, communication, being able to critically solve problems and communicate within teams. These kind of skills are the skills that the workplace of the future is putting as priority. And I think they can be developed from a primary school level already.
Lynsay, SubIa, do you want to add to this?
No. I mean, I think what Jan's saying is so true, and also I feel that primary education, school counselors, they need to be really upskilled into what is actually happening in the design industry. I feel a lot of school counselors who are there to actually guide and to inform students, I sometimes feel that they are not perhaps the best informed because of the fast technology growth that we are seeing. Yeah, that's just something that kind of I'd like to touch upon.
Yeah, I think if I can just add to that, and I think this is actually the point that SubIa is making is, I think, is an understated point. The career counselors in schools work very hard. They do fantastic work to guide students toward a career path. And I think, it's a challenging thing for them on a daily basis to be able to identify the skills of individuals and then guide them towards the career paths. But I think what SubIa is saying, and I 100% support this, is that sometimes we get the impression that schools and career counselors are not fully informed about the opportunities that exist within the creative industries and how big and how much growth there are for careers in the creative industries, because they see it as a hobby. They don't see it as something that you can really pursue as a career. And if anybody wants to have more information about this, I would love to invite them to reach out to somebody like SubIa or myself maybe, and we can help for you to understand the actual the extent of the creative media industries and the career opportunities that exist within that right now, and so that they can better help their parents and their students as well.
Thank you, Jan. And I think expanding on that question, I think, Lynsay, I'll give you the final question. Similarly, what pathways exist for students who love the stage but are also interested in backstage roles like lighting, set design, or directing?
There are many pathways. I was that student, actually. I liked to perform, but I wasn't. It was the whole picture that got me into theatre, from creating, taking an idea to putting it on the stage and everything in between. And there are a world of courses, apprenticeships, learning on the job. There are so many options for how you can take your drama GCSE or whatever it is that you've done at school and move forwards with it. You've said some of the obvious ones, but then there's a whole world. There's front of house, there are roles as dramaturges, and they support the playwrights and the directors in creating the world of the play. You can be a scenographer. It's literally somebody that scouts out locations and designs them to be whatever you need them to be for your performance. There are so many different avenues that do not necessarily just mean performing. Just my students personally, I've sent one of them to Canada, and he majored in stage management, so that was his focus. Film design, And then we've had obviously the actors, but there's so many different options. And I think not discounting it before you've explored it is really important, and not judging it based on someone else's view of whether the arts are a good choice for you or not. You know, this idea of, well, I'm clever, so I shouldn't do that, or, you know, I don't want to be an actor, so I'm not going to do that. Explore it fully before you make any decisions.
And I think also, just to add to that, what Lynsay has said, I mean, talking about performance arts, it's not just theatre, TV. If you think about social media, and if you think about the growth of content, about creating relevant content, and not just influencers who want to create content, but I'm talking about companies, international global companies who, of course, are using social media and are creating content. So I think the performing arts goes hand in hand with the growth in social media. So I think there is so much that can be done.
Of course. I think that sort of wraps up our session for today. We do have a few questions from those attending the conference. So I'll read them out, and each of the panelists, if you feel that you want to jump in and answer them, please go ahead and do so. So we got a question from Avinjit, who's asking, as a social enterprise working across India, Africa, and the Middle East, how can organizations like STEM Learning Global bridge the gap between curriculum and creativity in underserved classrooms, especially in with respect to innovative youth in countries undergoing digital transformation?
Can I just say, when you say underserved classrooms, what does that exactly refer to? Is that lack of resources, perhaps?
I think so, yes, because they're referring to India, Africa, perhaps some countries in the Middle East. So probably, yes. Maybe they have more of a focus towards STEM learning. So how do they bridge that now with getting the arts in as well?
Yeah, I think the one thing, if I can maybe make a contribution here, is, you know, again, I think there's sometimes a misconception that, you know, when it comes to STEM or STEAM, that everything has to be very heavily technology based. I think for me, you know, science and design thinking is linked, and problem solving is at the core of it. So to teach students the process of problem solving, starting with a piece of paper and a pencil, can be as effective as thinking that you need to use a computer or an iPad. And in fact, it can be more effective, because by using, this is the way I always describe it, you find the solution to a problem by using the lowest form of technology that you have access to, by activating your, you know, the brain. You implement the solution to that problem with the highest level of technology that you can have access to. So, but the solution comes usually from a very high level, a very low level of technology. So I don't think that if you are talking about, you know, the underserved classrooms, it doesn't mean that you cannot integrate creativity, STEM and STEAM into the learning process of the curriculum if you don't have access to computers or iPads or high levels of technology. Sometimes all you need is just a piece of paper and some colored pencils.
And some imagination.
And imagination.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So oh yes, of course, please.
Sorry, go on. I was just going to add, I think you need literally nothing to start with creativity. You need nothing. You can create drama with nothing. You can, in fact, I often say boredom and blank spaces are the place where creativity actually lives. So in many ways, there's no excuses. An underserved classroom, you are just as able to create things as everybody else is. But I think it goes back to what SubIa said a little while ago about being lifelong learners. And I think the key here is making sure that the people in those classrooms are educated, they understand, and they have the tools that they can share with the students. They have the ability to be able to take them through that process and show them all of the things that Jan was saying before about, you know, problem solving, reaching that end goal, all of those things.
So I don't think then creativity shouldn't be handicapped by technology.
No.
You just need the power of your mind. We'll go for one more question. We got a question from Camille who's asking, are you keeping in mind the inclusivity of students with disabilities? Creativity can be expressed with the help of assistive technology to keep them included. Any similar projects you have worked with?
We're extremely inclusive in our practice at school here and in my previous schools as well. Everybody has something to offer. Everybody is able to be creative, and the way that they access that creativity might be different, but there are no barriers to what students can do, and we expect the best from all of them, and then we adapt the ways that we achieve that with them. So it's very much student-led. They will say what it is that they're trying to do, and we will find ways to help them do it, be that technology or just be that some physical support or modeling or whatever those things might be. But yes, we inclusivity is a massive part of what we do.
Thank you. And one last one here. This is by Laurie. She's asking, are there any online platforms for creative-based education in all academic subject areas where schools around the world can enter into structured educational creative process-oriented projects where students work in core groups through creative process-oriented projects?
Yeah, there's, if I can, I'll just, there's just so many. I mean, even if you just go onto YouTube, you will find tutorials on literally every single subject that you can find readily available. Udemy, Khan Academy, the previously known Khan Academy, LinkedIn Learning. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of online platforms that provide, in many cases, training and development in creative skills for free. It doesn't always have to cost money. I would say even, you know, like I said, something like YouTube, most of it is available there. I just want to comment while I'm talking about this. I see somebody called David Squirrel on the chat mentioned, you know, that there's a big understanding about what creative teaching is, and he put in the comments there the word stream, which is 100%, David, you're 100% correct. You know, it started off with STEM about 25 years ago. It evolved into STEAM. I would say probably about 10 years ago, it evolved into STEAM. Currently, we refer to stream. Stream, the R in stream is actually research, to being able to do research and then be able to communicate and be able to work together as teams. So everything that we have actually spoken about and where the skills that are required actually comes from is actually enclosed in that acronym of STREAM. So David, thank you very much for that. You're 100% correct. And this is the evolution of the creative industries all the time, from STEM to STEAM to what it is currently as STREAM. It will always grow. It will always develop. It is always busy creating itself. And that's what it makes it so exciting.
Thank you, Jan. I think we're a bit over our allotted time. So thank you, SubIa, Jan, and Lynsay. I'm sure you've given our viewers a lot to think about, especially career pathways and how to look at what's next when their kids get out from school into university and what jobs they can take on. So creativity in the classroom need not always be handicapped to technology. What you need is the power of the mind. And I love what SubIa said about how arts are required for empathy, for resilience, for dialogue. I love what Lynsay said about giving everyone a chance, whether it's on stage or being part of projects around it. And finally, Jan, with how he explained the booming arts sector, especially sectors we don't know about, and how it's really very lucrative today. So over to you, Millie.
Hi again, everyone. That was a really, really inspiring discussion on the diverse landscape of creative arts education. So a huge, huge thank you to all of our speakers for your valuable insights, and then also to our listeners for joining us today. Conversations really highlighted the importance of recognising and nurturing creativity across multiple disciplines, from performance arts obviously to technical roles and behind the scenes. So if you would like to continue the conversation and share your thoughts, then please reach out to us at marketing@gesseducation.com. The session today has been recorded, so it will soon be available on our YouTube channel at GESS Education, and we'll also share it via email to all of you that attended today. Before you leave, we'd really appreciate your feedback. You'll be shown to a brief survey, which will appear on your screen once the webinar is ended. If you could please share your feedback with us. So thank you all for being part of today's GESS Talks webinar, and we look forward to seeing you at our next one. But take care and goodbye for now.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.